Every good story has a resolution, a finale, a fin at the end, a close. Every good sales call has a close, or at least an attempt for a close. See, the close really isn't always getting the yes, but close is the last stage of the call, the resolution, whether that be a yes or a no. Out of all the layers or stages of our story, of our sales call, the close really is the most structured, the most algorithmic, the most repeated. There's not much variation that we go through in the close. And see, realistically, this one's gonna be a pretty cut and dry video. Every close kind of looks the same, if you will. We go through the same process. We switch from pitching to a question asking phase, and then a temp check. And then after we get into temp check, we get into the price drop. After we get into the price drop, we either get the close or we get into objection handling. It's simple. The discovery phase of the call, the transition, artistic, flowing, the pitch, getting more structured, the close, as structured as it gets. We'll hop into it, and with this video, with this lesson, comes your understanding of the sales process. We now know what the intro is, having small talk, building rapport, getting into discovery, hitting the 5 objectives of every single sales call, maybe the extra 2 that we discussed before as well, transitioning, giving actionable steps, our pitch and its high-level promise with prongs or actionables that match those that we discussed in transition. And our close is our structured approach to getting the decision made. Our close is as structured as a landing page on an e-commerce store. Let's get into it. Let's dive in. Roll intro. The close, the finale to the sales call, the resolution to the plot, the finale. We've built a plot arc. We've gone through discovery and increased the arc. We've hit climax and transition. We went through pitch and released the tension of the call. And now the tension's released, we're in close, where resistance is low. They've aligned and agreed with our actionables. They've agreed with our pitch. We've gone through our pitch. Now it's time to close. The close is really simple. Like I said before, really the sale comes in discovery and transition. Those are the 2 meaty legs of a sales call. Those are the 2 things that we really have to put our attention into, specifically starting with discovery. Like I said, you can be a terrible pitch and close specialist, but if you're good at discovery, you're gonna be okay. Vice versa, if we're great at pitch and great at close, but we suck at discovery, we're gonna have a really hard time. And so in that, just know this video, this lesson, it's going to be a little more concise and short and sweet. And that's not because I don't care about the close, it's just because the close, like I said before, it's not complicated, it's simple. See, what we do after we pitch is we ask questions. And so in our last lesson, we talked about the fat loss offer and we went through a pitch. And the way we end a pitch is by saying, that's my pitch. That's it. My personal expression was, that's my elevator pitch. That's it. That's what I got. What questions do you have? And we enter the close by asking for questions. What questions do you have? I don't ask if they have questions. Do you have any questions? And the reason I don't ask if they have any questions is because 9 out of 10 times people will say, no, I don't have any questions, or no, I'm okay. But instead I ask, what questions do you have? And the reason I want them to ask questions is because questions allow them to internalize the pitch that we just went through. See, just from a tempo perspective, and in advanced topics, we'll talk about making sure we hybrid between each phase of the call effectively. But from a tempo perspective, after the pitch, the prospect has to consume the pitch. Imagine I just went through an entire 3 lessons with you, and after you consumed all 3 lessons, I immediately asked you questions or asked what questions you had. You wouldn't exactly have it all internalized yet. Now that's 3 lessons, that's a lot of volume. But even a 2 or 3 minute pitch, you go through a decent amount. And after you go through it, there is a few seconds, maybe 30 seconds, 45 seconds, where that prospect has to internalize it, comprehend it, and then after they comprehend it, they can see where the gaps are that they have to ask questions in. And so when you say, what questions do you have? A lot of the time, you'll actually get the response, I don't have any questions. In which case, I would always personally respond with, hey, totally get it. I just went through a lot, and so I just want to make sure you have a full understanding. And I ask the exact same thing with a slight prelude. And by then, they'll have questions. Well, I guess, what is this? What is that? Or how does this work? And the reason that this small phase of this stage, asking what questions they have, is so important is because it helps relieve uncertainty-based objections. Again, our second goal of the entire sales call is dismantling objections. It's everything we're doing. See, in the very first stage of the call, the intro, we start humanizing ourselves, which allows us through discovery to dismantle objections like, let me think about it, or I would have to wait till next month. In our transition and pitch, we don't dismantle objections, we more so get alignment in the solution that we think they need to have, and then of course tie our program to that. Now in close, what we do is we tackle the last uncertainty-based objections, and we do that in 2 phases of the close. We do that in the questions and temp check phase. Right now in the questions phase, we're asking what questions they have because we want them to understand and have complete clarity on everything we just went over. I told you before, clarity is something that is necessary for people to purchase or buy. People need clarity in order to feel comfortable moving forward. in patterns like we discussed before, or in giving someone their credit card info. And so what questions do they have is the very first question we ask in the close. And we don't move away from the question asking phase until they ask a financial question. We stay there, even if it's silent, waiting for questions. We answer a question and then we ask, great, what other questions do you have? That was a phenomenal question. What other questions do you have? That was a great question. What else do you have? And we stay in the question asking phase, fishing any questions out of them, killing any uncertainty until they are ready to take it to financials. And you'll always get something that looks like, well, I guess, how much does it cost? Or, well, what's the investment look like? You allow them to bring up the financials. And the reason you allow them to bring up the financials, it's kind of twofold. Number one is it almost works as permission to proceed. They feel comfortable moving there. They want to move there. The ball was given to them with what questions they have, and they asked that question. Otherwise, if you're just the sales rep saying, great, can we talk about money? Looks like you're just too excited to talk about it. The other side to it too is once they bring up the money question, that's them saying, I have complete clarity. The only thing I need to know now is whether or not it's financially worth it or financially if I can afford it. See, until we get to that financial question, uncertainty might still take place. And I'm not saying it doesn't afterward, but I'm saying that we are doing our best to prevent it by waiting for the financial questions. And once we have that financial question, we move forward in the close. And we get into what's called the temp check phase, which is our last phase of fishing out any kind of uncertainty. And the way we get into temp check is by saying something along the lines of, great question. I'd love to talk about the investment. If it's cool, the first thing I want to make sure of though is that this is the right thing for you, because I know our team is going to be boots on the ground in the trenches working at this and working at helping you. I just want to make sure you're as aligned with the solution as they are. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you think this is the perfect thing for you, it's exactly what you're looking for, and 1 being I hate this guy, get me off the phone. On a scale of 1 to 10, where do you think you are in this being the right fit for you? And what we're looking for is an 8, 9, or 10. We're looking for a B or an A or an A+. And to be realistic, I actually almost stay away from 10s. I don't think anything is ever perfect. If someone ever says 10, they're so bought in at that point that I feel like something has to be up. I love an 8 or a 9. But anything under an 8, we have to try to get alignment. Something's missing. If they're at a 7 or below, that means that this isn't necessarily the perfect thing for them. 7 or below, and it doesn't really matter what it costs, they're not really bought in. And so if they say anything from, I'm a 7 or I'm a 6, or even if they say, I'm an 8 with some uncertainty, then we get into alignment patterns again. Hey, I really appreciate you being honest. A lot of people just lie and say 10. I want to make sure before we get further into the process and get you with our client success team that you have complete clarity on what we're getting into. And so you're a 7. What do you think is needed to get you to that 8 or 9? I don't think anything is ever a 10 realistically. I don't think 10 is achievable. I don't think anything's ever the perfect thing, the perfect solution. But an 8 or a 9 means that you think it's going to work for you. A 7 means that I think something's missing. So for you, what do you need clarity on, or what do you think is missing from the solution that we haven't gone over? And really what I'm looking for is I'm just looking to see where they are building the uncertainty. And you'd be amazed at the small things that come up. The reason we want to do it now is because once we drop a price tag, we're on a different side, right? Once we drop a price tag, now there's a wall between us and the prospect, and it's very hard to handle these uncertainty-based objections. But right now, the prospect and I are on the same side. We're holding hands. We're walking toward the close together. And so any uncertainty is almost like a couple trying to fix relationship issues together. We're both working toward it. Once we have that alignment, then we can move into what's actually called the close. In the actual closing stage of the call, this next part is just the close, and it's completely less is more. It's super simple. The reason a lot of reps mess up here is because it can be a little bit uncomfortable. I'll tell you why in a second. You'll see why in a second. But it's very simple. It's very easy. Less is more. After we get alignment, the very last thing we do before we drop price is build clarity. Hey, great. Next steps are really simple. You'll process the investment with me. We'll connect you with the onboarding team. We'll do X, Y, and Z. All you do here is give clarity on what happens after the purchase. It's different for every company. I'll get you connected on Telegram with one of our SSCs. I'll get you inside the Facebook community, and we'll also get you inside the program. After we do that, then we just lead into dropping price. The investment is just 5K. 10K, and then silence. See, what most reps do here is they sometimes dread the price, and so they make the price a big deal. Note that I say just in front of the price tag. Just downplays words. If I say, it's 10K, that sounds big, or it's just 10K, now it sounds small. Or if I say, they've been dating for 2 years, that sounds like a real relationship. But if I say they've just been dating for 2 years, now it sounds like lesser. So just is a really powerful word in sales. And so we want to use it before we drop price. It's just 10K. And then silence. At this stage of the call, this is where most reps fail because they keep selling after they drop price. It's just 10K. How does that sound? Does that sound good? There's a really common rule in sales. It's a known rule, but it's the person who breaks the silence first loses. Whoever can hold the silence the longest wins. I'm not kidding. It's awkward at first on the sales rep's end, because on your end, you're just waiting for a response. But on the prospect's end, they're thinking. They just went through an entire call with you where you showed them they have more pain than they realized, that their problem influences their life or their business in ways they never even comprehended. And then you gave them actionable steps on what they need to do, whether you work with them or not. Then you showed them all about your program and how it matched those actionable steps. And now we're here, and now they have to take all of that in and decide whether or not that price tag is worth the cost of action or inaction. And that's a lot. That's a lot to take in. So they're thinking about this. They're thinking about whether it's worth it or not. They're thinking about the daily life of what happens after they take action and sign on with you. They're thinking about what the bank account looks like, after this, and if that's going to throw off any other payments that they have to make in the next X amount of weeks. They're thinking about everything. But as a sales rep, you're just sitting there and waiting. Now there's tension on your end. The funny thing is, on the prospect's end, they don't really sense the tension. The prospect isn't playing a game of silence off. They're just thinking. And so as a sales rep, your job is super simple. Less is more. All you have to do is shut up. All you have to do is make sure that you don't break the silence. See, this game of silence is a one-way game. It's a one-sided game. On your end, you're just in this tension of waiting, but on their end, there is no tension. They're not even paying attention to the silence. They're just thinking about how they can make this work. They're going through calculations on whether the cost of inaction is more than the cost of action, how to take the cost of action, if the cost of action is worth doing in general, if it's a problem worth solving, if they have enough urgency to want to solve it now. They're thinking about all this. And so what new sales reps do is they get uncomfortable. This game of tension, they can't stand it, and they break silence. They ask a question. How does that sound? You ready to rock? Something corny, something stupid, something just to fill that silence with some volume of words. That's really at the end of the day what it is. They're just trying to get away from the silence, that tension. They're trying to relieve tension. As sales reps, we know that in discovery and in transition, we want tension. We want that tension on the chessboard, like we discussed before. But now it feels weird for us. See, top tier closers, they don't even feel it. But new sales reps, that tension's uncomfortable. But what happens when we break the silence and we break that tension is that we give them an out. It's almost like someone's in deep thought, and we give them that ADD moment of, you don't have to continue thinking. And they come out of that deep thought moment and think, oh, you know what, I'd have to think about this. Or, yeah, this is a big decision, let me think about it for a day. We give them an escape route, an escape hatch when we break the silence. So less is more. First rule of the close, biggest rule of the close is after you drop price, you don't say anything until they do. And there are 3 things that we can get at the end of a sales call. We can get a yes, which is great. Then we onboard. We can also get a no, which is rare. Most people don't have the ability to say no. And so what they do is defer, which is option number 3, deferment. Let me think about it. Let me talk to my wife. Let me talk to somebody. Let me sleep on it for a night and get back to you tomorrow. I don't make decisions on the call. Luckily, throughout our discovery and transition process and pitch process, we set tie downs that we can use to conquer these objections and really smoke screens. But it's important to understand that's what we expect after a close, either yes, a no, or a deferment. And honestly, the better you get at closing, the more you enjoy the deferments and the no's, the more they become games. The yeses come easily at a certain point. See, most new closers, when they get to the close and they drop the price, they're just waiting for the yes. But a good closer is just waiting for an answer, waiting for one of those 3 routes. New closers, if they don't get the yes, if they get a no or a deferment, they deflate. And they get almost angry and they get defensive and they start attacking when they handle objections. But a good closer almost expects the deferment or the no. And when it comes, they're calm and they can handle it well. A yes almost comes as a surprise. The close is fun, but it's structured. We start by saying, what questions do they have on the pitch? And we keep that phase going until they ask us about financial questions. And once they ask us about financial questions, we get into a temp check on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being, you think this is perfect for you? 1 being, you hate me. How aligned are you with this? Once we have alignment at 8, 9, or 10 with confidence in the tonality of their answer, we build next steps. We build clarity so they understand what happens once they invest money. After we build clarity, then we drop price. And after we drop price, we are silent. And we are silent until one of 3 answers are said, yes, no, or deferment. And then based on those answers, we come to phase 4, which is handling objections. Taking no's and turning them into yeses, taking deferment and turning them into decisions, which could be yes or no's, and then down the flowchart, no's into yeses. Objection handling is something I almost caution new closers to look at. And the reason for that is because you have to know how to handle objections to be a top tier closer. But the problem with objection handling is that it's where closers focus. And the reason they focus on objection handling is because they get a lot of objections when they start. New sales reps get tons of objections. And so they think the 80-20 of improving in sales is by learning how to handle those objections. But in reality, the 80-20 is learning how to prevent those objections. And that all happens in discovery and transition. The close is structured, it's algorithmic, there's not much variance in it. That is the close. It is that simple. Like I said in the last lesson, I wish it was more complicated. I wish I could say I'm teaching you something that is more like rocket science, but I'm not. Sales is simple. Kiss it, keep it stupid simple. The close is perfectly fitted into that. Less is more. That brings us to a conclusion on phase 3, the sales call process, the framework of a sales call. I will see you in the next phase, which is on objection handling. How do we take deferments and turn them into yeses? I'm excited for it. I don't want you guys thinking it's what we need to focus on. Phase 3 discovery, phase 3 transition is the most important part of the sales process, but you do have to understand and know how to conquer objections. So let's get into it. I'll see you in the next phase. I'll see you in the next lesson, but until then, happy hunting.